All right, guys, Jerry Fetta here, owner, founder, and CEO of the Wealth Dynamics brand, coming to you today with Wealth Wednesday. This is my personal weekly wealth building update, full transparency. Here's what I'm doing. Here's where I'm with my wealth journey. Here's my strategies. This is what I'm learning, right? Now, at the very end of this, I have a very special gimmick for you today, right? What is a gimmick? A gimmick is a thing that we use to spice things up, to get someone excited, right? When you go to the fair and they've got these giant, rides and stuff, those are all gimmicks, right? Gimmicks aren't bad. Gimmicks are actually usually fun. I love a good gimmick, right? So I'm going to give you a great gimmick today. If you watch this video, you go to the very end of the video, okay? You have to actually go to the very end. You have to watch all the way through. I'm going to give you a special hashtag that if you put this hashtag in the comments, I'm going to give you free access to our Big 3 Challenge. Free. This is something we're charging about $2.99 for. And if you watched the very end of the video, I'm going to give you this very specific hashtag. You're going to get it for free, right? So you've got to watch the video. That's number one. You've got to like the video. And you've got to subscribe to the channel. That's 3 things. I'm going to give you a 4th one. Then the hashtag. Watch, like, subscribe, hashtag. Then I'll give you free access to the Big 3 Challenge. But let's jump into our update for today. All right, guys, Wealth Wednesday update. So I've had a very busy week. Not only did I run my business and do my usual stuff, I drove like 2,000 or 3,000 miles in the last 7 days. So we took a road trip from Florida all the way up to Washington, D.C. So we saw Florida, we went to Savannah, Georgia, so we spent some time there. Pretty sure it's haunted there, but it was some good food. That's cool. Then we went through South Carolina, which is a lot of highways and trees. North Carolina, one of my favorite states, actually, so we stayed there for a day. Then we went to Virginia. Okay? In Virginia, we stayed at an actual haunted farmhouse, so that was fun. Washington, D.C. Then we went back to North Carolina. We spent some time in Asheville. Really interesting city. Someone told us it was the Portland of the East Coast, and we're like, what does that mean? Now I know what that means. Then we went to Tennessee. We spent some time in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Probably my favorite place I've been in the entire United States. Then we went down through Georgia, back to Florida, and now we're back home. So that was an update. So while I was going through that, I was doing, learning. I was listening to podcasts in the car, right? And I had a lot of reality on some of my clients. One of my clients I talk with, semi-often, he's a truck driver. So I was like, okay, this is probably what Nick does, right? He listens to podcasts and audios a lot. So one of the things that as an update for me, going through that trip and that experience, we're going to launch a bunch of new free content, right? So we're going to be launching the Wealth Dynamics podcast. Okay, we're going to be moving Sacred Account Saturday just to once a month. Okay, we're going to be doing what's called Wealth Wednesdays with me and Samantha Esteleo, my chief of performance and delivery, right? We're also going to be doing what's called the Bankers Board Meeting. This is for every client we have that has a Sacred Account, where once a week we're going to get together and we're going to talk banking strategies, right? And so these are all things we're going to do in addition to the content we already dropped, so that next time I go on a road trip, if I'm a Wealth Dynamics client, I've got a ton of stuff I can listen to, right? We've already got lots out there, including these videos. But I was like, man, for the people like Nick, if you got to commute, right? You're living in Washington, D.C., and it takes you an hour to get to work every day. You drive a truck for a living, or, you've got to drive 30 minutes to drop your kids at school. That's time in the car where you could be doing your own Wealth Dynamics University education. Right? I learned this from Zig Ziglar. Zig Ziglar, very, very famous guy in the personal development space. One of the coolest dudes you'll ever listen to. Honestly, this guy was just a gem. And so when I was doing pizza delivery, he talked about Automobile University. And so I forget the exact math on it, but he's like, if you're driving so many hours per year and you're listening to an audiobook or a podcast or something like that every time you drive, instead of, what's your alternative? Cardi B singing about how she shakes her butt, right? Or like all this weird music. It's low energy stuff. It's mental trash. It brings your energy down. It makes you fixate and focus on things that aren't good for you. So instead of listening to music, listen to audios, actually improve yourself. And so the math on this was, if you drive a certain amount of time every year, you listen to these, it's the equivalent of getting a college degree. So what I did is, when I was doing pizza delivery, I did that for a couple of years, and I was doing that full time. The way that I calculated it, guys, with the math, and I forget the exact math Zig Ziglar said, maybe if someone wants to Google this, they could put it in the comments of the video. But guys, I got a full college degree in business listening to those audios. And so I want to give you a degree in finances. That's one of my updates on this. Now, here's a few things I'm working on right now. So my Sacred account got approved, my next one. It's going to be with One America. And so one of the things that I've been looking at and actually studying is when we talk about the Sacred account, there's some numbers and metrics that people like to focus on. One of the first ones is, what's my year one liquidity? When I put in, 10 grand, for example, or 100 grand, how much do I have available? Now, if you're watching my stuff, you're going to be able to borrow typically 70 to 90% of that on average, right? Now, maybe it's a little higher, maybe it's a little lower, but that's kind of the average range. That's a big one people focus on, right? And people are like, oh, I want to have really high cash value and I want to be able to take as much money out as possible in the early years. And really that's all wrong. And so I would instead focus on investing for the long term, okay? So when I did my illustration, believe it or not, I actually went for less liquidity. And the reason why is with less liquidity, I've got more long-term growth, right? I want more long-term growth. I'm not focused on the next 3 to 5 years. I'm focused on the next 10, 15, 20 years. And so that's my idea there. Now, the other one people tend to focus on is the dividend rate. What's the dividend that I'm earning on my policy? Now, I set mine up with One America, and one thing that I was shocked by, One America does not report their dividend. They don't even tell you what it is. And when you search and you look, they say, well, it's because it doesn't matter. Right? The dividend rate means something different. The math is different based on every company you work with. And so when you see companies saying, well, we pay a 6% dividend or a 5% dividend or whatever dividend, those are all different factors. And so when you look at these different factors, you tend to focus on the dividend rate when it doesn't actually apply to you. So what is the number that I look at with my policy? I'm looking at as it capitalizes, as it grows, as it breaks even. When I put in $1, how many dollars do I have available in new cash value, right? And so I put together a policy where as I get down to, the 5th year, the 10th year, the 15th year, it gets more and more and more, and it grows and gets better and better and better every year. Mine actually gets to a point where if I put in $1, I actually get $4 new that year available for the dollar that I put in. I'm going to repeat that. I put in $1 and I can pull out 4. Okay, there aren't very many things you can do that with. So that's one of my wealth building updates is, I kind of knew that, but I looked at it this way this week and I was like, everyone needs to see their policy this way, right? I have, let's say in year 5, for example, I've got, $10,000 in cash value and, my contribution is going to be, 10 grand, right? So from year 5 to year 6, I put in 10,000, for example, and it goes from 10,000. But instead of going to 20,000, maybe it goes to 25,000. And so what that means is if I take my loan out, I borrow against that 10,000, it's gone. It's still growing, but it's gone. I borrowed against it. It's still growing and compounding. And in the next year, I put in my next 10,000 contribution, and I've actually got $15,000 available for the 10 that I put in. So I just put in $1 and I've got access to $1.50, even though I was using that money the entire time for investing or paying off debt or maybe personal development or growing my business, right? I want you to think with that. And if you're a client and you want to see this on your illustration, I want you to reach out to my team because we'd be happy to invite you to one of our bankers board meetings and go over this with you on your exact illustration, right? Now, the other thing that I'm doing with my own personal wealth building is called the segregated account. So you've got your Sacred account, right? You've got the money you're putting in your policy. Let's say it's $1,000 a month, right? Most of the time that's probably coming out of your checking account. Your income goes in there, your expenses come out of it, and then you pull the money out and you put that in your policy. Instead, what I want you to do is I want you to set up what's called a segregated account. Okay, a segregated account is an account that, it's basically another savings account, but every time you get paid, you're gonna take part of your paycheck, you're gonna transfer it into that segregated account. The only thing that comes out of that account is your premium deposit into your Sacred account. That's the only thing. You're not paying bills out of it. This money is off limits. I want you to pretend it doesn't exist. So you're going to transfer that in. So if you're doing, let's say, $1,000 a month and you're paid twice a month, your paycheck comes in, you move $500 from that paycheck into your segregated account. Next paycheck comes in, you move $500 out of that into your segregated account. What did you just accomplish? Well, number one, you guaranteed the money for your premiums are there. Sometimes people will say, I want to start a policy. So good. It's going to take a month or 2 months to set that up. We get there and they talk to me and say, oh, Samantha, I don't have the money. It's not actually there. I need to wait. Or, I thought I was going to have it, but I don't. This gets rid of that. As soon as you sign up with my team, if you say, I'm going to be doing $1,000 a month, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make you set up your segregated account. That's there now. you're gonna start paying into that segregated account just like it's your sacred account. So now, immediately, you start transferring that money every time you get paid. You practice paying yourself first. Right now, what happens is your policy goes in force, all the money you need is there. Right now, I mentioned I opened up another policy. The reason I did that is I have my policy here, my segregated account funds that premium deposit, but I also take loans against it. So I take a loan and I pay my loan back. Once a month, that's also on an automatic draft, and so my loan repayment also goes into my segregated account. So I'm paying myself back principal plus interest every month into my segregated account. I'm moving my premium deposits into my segregated account. Then once a month, my scheduled premium and my scheduled loan repayment goes into my segregated account. As I do that, at a certain point, some money is gonna start being left over every month. It's gonna be extra. I'm gonna see it. I paid my loan back, I did my premium. There's still money there in that segregated account on a regular monthly basis. This is the money you're now gonna use to set up your next policy. Right? If you can increase your savings rate too, you should move money into that. Every month you'll start seeing, I've got more available, I've got more available, I've got more available, right? You move that in. Now, how do you free up money in your budget? Here's the last thing I wanna cover, guys. So this is what I'm actually doing right now. So I told you a few weeks ago, I handled all my consumer debt. I went through some crazy stuff last year, racked up some credit cards, I borrowed against my sacred account, I paid all those off a few weeks back. So that's done, that freed up cash flow because I don't have to pay those minimums anymore. That's available in my loan repayment, my savings rate increased. The next thing I'm looking at is my insurances, right? So I shop my insurances. I'm gonna be shopping my car insurance, I'm gonna be shopping my renter's insurance and looking at how do I reduce that, okay? Taxes is another one. I'm not putting money into an investment right now, so that's not what I need to look at. There's subscriptions. The big one though that I'm looking at is lowering my cost of living. Okay, I'm in a stage right now where, I was, a year ago, literally an inch away from being financially independent. And part of my story is, I had financial fraud happen with an investment last year. I had some personal matters in my life that were very big changes happen as well. Some issues with my company that were kind of in this rebuilding or building stage. And so I'm looking at, okay, I'm used to living this way and I still could live this way, but I want to get there faster. And so I'm actually looking at how do I reduce my housing costs. Right now I live on the water, it's beautiful, it's in Florida, it's an ideal scene, but guys, this isn't my final destination. I'm not at the top yet. And so part of this is understanding and recognizing the condition that I'm in. If this was fitness and I'm like, I'm in shape, but I want to look better, I would immediately reduce my calories and increase the amount of calories I burn by exercising more. Same thing with finances. I'm in a good position, but I want to be better. I would immediately cut my expenses down and boost my income up and accelerate my progress, right? And by doing that, for me, in the next couple of months, I'm going to be freeing up about $2,000 a month on various things. You bet your ass I'm putting that in my segregated account first, then into another sacred account. And I'm going to be putting more and more money every month towards my sacred accounts. I was challenged. A friend of mine, Brent, he's got 20 of these. I was like, I don't have 20 yet, so I've got some work to do. So if you're just on your first sacred account, or maybe you don't even have one yet, you're still putting money in with the banks, other people's banks, and you get this concept, this is the game. Get as many as you can, right? So if you're watching this and you're a client, okay, if you're a client and you're watching this, I want you, if you've got your illustration and you want to find out how to look at it the way that I mentioned today, I want you to email us, email Samantha@wealthdynamics.com. Let her know you're interested in joining our Bankers Board meetings. If you're interested in setting up your segregated account, I've got a special one that we can put together for you. Okay, if you have a sacred account, you should have the segregated account and you should have the exact one that I'm using. So we can set you up with that as well. And then finally, as I had mentioned, if you're watching this video to the very end, if you do hashtag in the comments, hashtag B3C. Okay, hashtag B3C in the comments, right? So again, you need to like the video, you need to have watched the full video, subscribe to my channel, and do the hashtag B3C in the comments. If you do that, my team is gonna give you free access to the 90-day Big 3 Challenge, where over the next 90 days, we're gonna help you build your top 3 wealth building challenges so that your financial literacy, your income, and your savings are all at all-time highs over the next 90 days. That's all I've got for you today. Thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe. I'll see you next time.